Hello, Year 11, and welcome to today's lesson, which is our final language lesson of the week. And we're looking at how I can clearly explain my viewpoint. So today we're focusing on question 5 on paper 2, which is the 40-mark writing question. Before we get started, you can either just complete this on the Google Doc that's saved in the Year 11 classroom, or if you're using the video and it's easier, just handwrite your answer and then you can take a picture and email it into your teacher once you've finished. Now, this lesson has been planned to take 2 hours. So this part of the lesson should probably take you just about an hour. And then the second hour will be you writing up your response as a full answer, as a full exam style answer. So it's a double lesson today. Right, there are 9 tasks in total. If you've got everything you need, you've got pen, paper, you've got everything you need to get started, let's get moving. Right, task 1, as always, is a punctuation task. Just as a reminder, I know I've said this to you already before this week, but paper 1 and paper 2, question 5, 16 marks for spelling, punctuation and grammar, which is 20% of your total GCSE language grade. Really, really important that you're using a variety of punctuation accurately. And today we're going to be looking at semicolons. So there's a little bit of information here about semicolons. Just read over it to remind yourself. They link 2 sentences that are about the same topic, and they can replace and but or so. The sentence must make sense before and after the semicolon, so it's got to be 2 simple sentences on either side. Here's a really easy example. Tom loves pizza, he eats it every day. So 2 simple sentences linked with a semicolon. Both of them really are about pizza. That's the linked topic. I want you now to write 2 of your own sentences using semicolons correctly, and to link into today's theme, try and write it about animal cruelty. That's what we're going to be writing about today. So your example is, testing makeup on animals is unnecessary and cruel. I refuse to buy products from companies that carry out this process. Now, I could actually use either so or and in between those 2 sentences. Testing makeup on animals is unnecessary and cruel, so I refuse to buy products from companies that carry out this process. That fits, it makes sense. Both parts of the sentence are about testing makeup on animals, so that's my linked topic, and that's me using a semicolon in the correct way. Pause the video now and take it your own turn now to write 2 sentences that use semicolons correctly. Brilliant. Right, task 2 then, our vocabulary task. So these are the words that we looked at last lesson, and last lesson your task was to divide them into positive and negative, and I've just done that for you today. So our positive words are righteous, dignity, virtuous, moral, benefit, and our negative words are distasteful, disagreeable, appalling, horrifying, abhorrent. What I want you to do is complete these 4 sentences by using words from the grid above. Now, I'm going to read through all 4 sentences, and then you're going to pause the video and add the missing words. So chasing a fox until it is exhausted is not something or something. The physical effects of some experiments on small animals can be. There are some great to using animals in medical testing. And finally, we should allow animals, not subject them to a something death. Right, so pause the video now and decide which words you think best fits those sentences. Let's just move the words down so you can see them. Fantastic. Right, I'm assuming now you've chosen the words for yourself and written them in. So there are more than one right answer for these. Many of these words will fit in the different gaps, but I'm just going to read them out to you this time with the words that I would use to fill these gaps. So chasing a fox until it is exhausted is not righteous or virtuous. The physical effects of some experiments on small animals can be disagreeable. There are some great benefits to using animals in medical testing. We should allow animals dignity, not subject them to an abhorrent death or a horrifying death. So that's how I would use the words to fill the gaps. You may have chosen your own words or put them into a different order. That's absolutely fine, as long as it makes sense. We're good to go, carrying on. Right. Task 3A then. So this is your question. Question 5 on paper 2. You will only have one choice of question. And it will always look like this. It will always give you a statement. So our statement today is animal testing, hunting for sport. We have a duty to protect and care for these animals, not use them for our needs. So that's our statement. So animal testing, hunting for sport, we have a duty to protect and care for these animals, not use them for our needs. And then the task is write a letter to your MP where you explain your point of view on this statement. So there'll always be a statement and then the actual task afterwards. What I want you to do now is pause the video and decide what the SPA of this task is. So style, what are you being asked to write? Purpose, why are you writing it? And the audience, who are you writing to? So pause the video now while you figure that out. Right, so let's go through this. Style, you're being asked to write a letter. So that's important because the thing of how you're going to set out a letter, you're going to need to include a address, starting off by dear, ending with yours sincerely, yours faithfully. So we're going to have, that's going to be our letter. The purpose, why you are writing, is to explain your point of view. So you're going to be writing to explain your point of view. So that's there. So if you notice, all I'm doing is taking these from the task. So letter there. I'm going to highlight that for you to help you. So there's letter. Explain your point of view is there. And then audience, who am I writing to? So for this, I'm writing to my local MP. Our local MP. We have the same local MP. So I'm writing a letter to explain my point of view about this statement to my local MP. Now, it's really important that I've done that first because now I know how to set my task out. I know the kind of language devices I need to use. I know the tone I need to use. That's really helpful. That's the first step in the planning stages. So the next thing, because I've got to give my point of view, I also need to think about other arguments. So I want to know what are some of the arguments for and against hunting animals and using animals for medical testing. Now, a little tip, if you think back to the text from lesson 1 and lesson 2, they were both about hunting animals. So in the Anne Widdecombe text, there are lots of arguments against fox hunting. She also does include some arguments for hunting foxes or shooting, certainly for shooting foxes. And in the De Cayley text, you might be able to pick out 1 or 2 arguments in favour of animal hunting. So use those texts and your own ideas and put in some ideas here. Now then, as an extension task, you can also watch this video that's here on the document. It's only a short video and that will give you some more points to add to your list. So let's just play this video now.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
Animal testing is when non-human animals are used in experiments. Animals can be tested on numerous different experiments, including to determine the toxicity of chemicals, as well as whether or not products are suitable for humans. In this video, we will look at both sides of the argument, examining why certain people think animal testing should happen and why others staunchly oppose it. The arguments for and against animal testing have been put into 3 groups: ethical arguments, arguments about the efficiency of animal testing, and arguments about the cost of animal testing. Let's start with ethical arguments, by far the most popular type of argument used to defend or attack animal testing. Firstly, we need to understand what an ethical argument is. Ethics concerns what is morally right and wrong, so ethical arguments for or against animal testing focus on whether or not it is morally right or wrong. Proponents of animal testing argue that it is morally right as it has helped with the development of many life-saving treatments for both humans and animals. Opponents of animal testing argue, on the other hand, that it is cruel and inhumane to the animals and that there are often alternative methods that could be used to test product suitability for humans. There is also the moral argument that animal testing is acceptable because animals are inferior to humans. They lack sentience and reason and have historically been considered inferior throughout many different times and cultures. Opponents say that this argument does not speak to the benefits of animal testing. Instead, it attempts to justify humans causing harm and suffering to animals simply for the sake of it. Animal testing can also be justified or criticised on grounds of efficiency. Efficiency means getting the most out of something, not wasting resources. So proponents of animal testing argue that animals are very close to humans when it comes to DNA and organs, meaning that testing on them provides insight into humans. However, opponents would argue that we are not that similar to the animals that are being tested upon. We are bigger, we have different skeletons, etc., making testing on them a waste of their lives. Plus, opponents would also argue that tests on animals do not always reliably predict results in humans, meaning some drugs that harm animals help humans, and some that harm humans do not harm animals, again furthering the argument that animal testing is inefficient. The final group of arguments for or against animal testing concerns cost. In terms of cost, opponents of animal testing argue that it is a waste of money, as the results are not necessarily predictive of results in humans, and the same tests can be done for cheaper via stem cells and synthetic organs, for example. Proponents would argue, on the other hand, that animal testing saves money, as it avoids lawsuits and the cost of drugs having to be remade if they fail human trials. Overall, it seems that animal testing is favoured by some because they think it helps save lives. They argue that by testing on a living organism before humans, it helps speed up the process of producing new drugs for patients. On the other hand, opponents of animal testing question whether it is really worth the pain and the suffering it causes them, as it is expensive, not always reliable, and has many different alternatives. That's animal testing for you. Thanks for watching. Please like, please share, and please subscribe.
Thank you, Year 11. So now you've watched that, you should be able to add at least a couple more ideas for both for and against arguments. So pause the video now and using the video and using the text from last lesson, complete that table. Brilliant. Right, so task 5, just a quick one, again, helping you think about different arguments in favour or against animal hunting, animal testing. It really helps if you can think about the viewpoints of other people. This helps develop your ideas and develop your sentence structures and develop your paragraphs. So I want to complete the following sentences to show the viewpoint of different groups on the topic of hunting animals and using animals for medical testing. I'm giving you 5 different people. So as someone who wears makeup, I feel that. So think about makeup being tested on animals. How would that make people feel? Would they want it to be tested on animals if it's safe, or would they rather it wasn't for their moral code, their ethics? As an animal rights activist, I strongly believe that. How would they finish that sentence off to do with animal testing or hunting animals? As a farmer, my perspective is, so what would a farmer's view of animal hunting particularly be? Or both, animal testing as well. As a big game hunter, my opinion is. And then as someone who suffers from a rare disease, my viewpoint is. So try and finish each of those sentences off. And again, this is some ideas that you can put into your writing later on. Right, here we have a model example. Just a few things. So you've been asked to write to your MP. It's really important that you think about the reason why you'd write a letter to your MP. Now, MPs make laws, they can vote on laws, they can propose new laws. So very often we write to our Member of Parliament if laws are about to be changed or people are looking for laws to be changed, to put pressure on them in order to vote the way that we want them to vote. And so that would be the main reason to write to your MP, to effect some kind of change in law or to keep laws as they are. If people are proposing a change to the law that you're not happy with. So if you're being asked to write to your MP in an exam, I would try and convey that idea. Think about what it is you're being asked to write about and what the purpose of you writing to them, what you're going to gain from writing them, what can they do to help you. But you'll see this letter sets it out. So our local MP here in Blakely is Graham Stringer. And obviously he's our local MP, although he's based in Manchester, he does work in the House of Commons, so we're going to address his letter there. So Graham Stringer, House of Commons, London, SW1A 0AA. In an exam, if you just make up an address, that's absolutely fine. Dear Mr. Stringer, yesterday I was browsing through the Manchester Evening News when I came across an article stating that MPs are considering a change in law surrounding animal testing and hunting. This law change will allow even more species to be added to the lengthy list of animals that can be legally tested upon and hunted. I am writing to you today to express my opinion that this utterly abhorrent suggestion should be opposed. Hopefully you will listen and do what is right. Vote against this decision in Parliament. Mr. Stringer, would you enjoy being tested on for the sake of medical experiments that yield little to no useful results? Would you enjoy being killed for sport? I am almost certain you wouldn't, but this is the reality for many animals in Britain today. Over 40,000 British animals are killed as a result of testing or hunting every single month. Often injured, confused and alone, these animals are burnt alive by chemicals, ripped apart by hounds, or left to bleed out after being shot. We must fight to stop this. A minority of people may feel that animal testing is necessary to find cures for devastating diseases such as heart disease, many types of cancer, HIV, Parkinson's disease, and schizophrenia. However, intelligent individuals, like you and I, recognise that animals do not suffer from such diseases in the same way that humans do. Instead, these diseases are artificially induced within animals in laboratories in an attempt to mimic the human disease. Not only does this belittle the complexity of human conditions, but it has also been proven to be ineffective time and time again. In fact, a recent study conducted by the University of Manchester suggested that over 66% of animal testing results in drugs and products that cannot be used safely on humans. This proves that animal testing is fruitless. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of money, and it's a waste of vulnerable animal lives. Why then would we encourage such a repugnant practice to not only continue, but to grow? Perhaps even more barbaric than this ultimately futile animal testing is hunting. Shockingly, every year almost half of Britain's deer, fox and hare population are needlessly killed in hunting for sport. That's right, hundreds and thousands of powerless animals are brutally murdered for the sake of mere human entertainment. Surely there's no longer any excuse for this, Mr. Stringer. Not only do we have a multitude of technologies that mimic the sport of hunting, technology that is also cheaper, more environmentally friendly and less harmful to wildlife, but we also have scientific proof of how much pain the animals endure when being killed in this manner. Don't you agree that we should be fighting this deplorable sport to be eradicated, rather than made easier and more legally accessible? As the considerate MP that I know you are, I'm sure you will make the right choice when it is time for you to vote on this matter in Parliament. In response to this letter, I am asking that you listen to my voice and the voices of others that will surely follow. Together we can help stop the terrible plight of all these innocent animals. Yours faithfully, E. Smith. Right, so as you can see, this very clearly, first of all, sets out her reason for writing the letter. She's came across an article in the local paper that talks about a change in law, and she's against that change in law. She doesn't want that law to be changed. So she's made that very clear. She's told Mr. Stringer that she wants him to vote against the law. And then she's addressed both parts of the statement. So the first part of the statement was about animal testing, and the second part was about hunting. So we have here a paragraph about animal testing and why it is wrong and shouldn't be encouraged, and then a paragraph here about animal hunting, and again why it's wrong and should not be encouraged. And then finally a concluding paragraph which just sums up and very clearly states so that make the right choice when it's time for you to vote in Parliament, listen to my voice, stop this, and again end on that nice emotive, stop the terrible plight of all these innocent animals. She's referred to him directly throughout the letter. So she starts off by saying, "Dear Mr. Stringer," but then we've got "Mr. Stringer, would you" here, and a bit later on she refers to him again as Mr. Stringer, again being polite. It's down here being polite, being formal, but also appealing to him personally. This is who she's writing to. She's writing to Mr. Stringer and she wants him to listen to her. She's thought about each paragraph. Each paragraph ends on quite a dramatic piece of language. So this one ends on this rule of 3. These animals are burnt alive by chemicals, ripped apart by hounds, or left to bleed out after being shot. This one ends on a rhetorical question. Why then would we encourage such a repugnant practice not only continue but to grow? And this one also ends on a rhetorical question. Don't you agree that we should be fighting for this deplorable sport to be eradicated rather than made easier and more legally accessible? And both these rhetorical questions also have a good use of vocabulary and strongly emotive as well. So the actual structure of each paragraph is very clear. This paragraph starts by thinking about the counter-argument. So some people may think that it's necessary because of all this, so using a nice list here, different types of illnesses, but then she goes on to explain in detail why that's wrong. Actually, that's an incorrect assumption to make, and that's why the animal testing should be banned. So we've got what some people think, first of all, that they're wrong, that it's the wrong opinion to have, but then explaining why it's the wrong opinion to have, and then finally ending with, as a result of this knowledge, what should we then do? What we should do is stop animal testing. So that's quite a neat structure for a paragraph to have, and one that you can model throughout your work. So using that feedback there, year 11, I want you now to go through and I want you to do these things where the writer has used the anticipate the counter-argument, any statistics or similes, anecdotes, flattery, emotive language, exaggeration, facts, opinions, repetition, rhetorical question, rule of three, and direct address. So just highlight those. I want you to pay particular attention to the rule of three. This writer has used quite a lot of that in this piece of work, and it's what makes it effective. It really develops her ideas and develops her use of language and vocabulary. So just pause the video now while you do that. Right, moving on to the final part of the task then. So task 8, you need to plan out your response to this question. So you need an introduction, you need 3 paragraphs in the middle, and then you need a conclusion. This should just be bullet points. I don't want it to any longer than 5 or 6 minutes planning out your work, but it is important that you do. This piece of work was very clearly structured. Clear introduction, 2, the middle part very clearly talking about first of all just animal testing, then just about hunting, nice and clearly defined, and then finally a conclusion, but it all flows neatly together. It's clear that this person's planned their work. So you now, and you can use that model to help you, but you need to plan out your introduction, what's going to go in there, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, and then your conclusion. Just do it in bullet points. So pause the video now, 5-minute timer, off you go. Brilliant. So always make sure you plan. You have got about 45 to 50 minutes in the exam on this question, and it is vitally important that you spend 5 minutes of that time planning. It will have an impact on the writing you produce. It will certainly help with that overall structure and cohesion that you get a lot of your marks for. Once you're happy with your plan, you're going to write your response here, answering that question. Now, this is what you've got to help you. So you've got a success criteria. First of all, things you need to use: accurate sentences, clear paragraphs, a range of a safe forward, varied sentences, including these ly, ing, and ed openers, varied range of punctuation, including semicolons. Remember, we started off the lesson by writing sentences with semicolons. You may be able to use some of those. 1-sentence paragraph, if possible. The model example has a nice 1-sentence paragraph here. You can steal that idea if you want. Some ambitious vocabulary, which is here. Now you can just start typing your response here, but I've also given you some sentence starters to help you. You can use as many or as few of these as you want. You will also need to write your own sentence starters. Right, so pause the video now, give yourself a 30 to 35 minute timer, pause the video, and off you go. Right, well done, Year 11. This is your final language lesson of the week. Our next lesson is going to be on the De Lacy family, on Frankenstein. Have a lovely evening. Take care. See you soon.